Imagine this, a tiny island, hot and humid, no oil, no gold, no farmland. In the 1960s, Singapore was poorer than most African countries. People lived in overcrowded slums, unemployment was high, and the nation had just been kicked out of Malaysia. It was called a hopeless country. But fast forward just a few decades, and Singapore now has one of the highest incomes in the world. The skyline is filled with shining towers, its airport is ranked the best in the world, and its passport is one of the strongest you can hold. So how did this miracle happen? How did a poor, small country with no resources become richer than many nations that had oil, land, and power? The story of Singapore's rise is not luck. It is a masterclass in leadership, vision, and discipline. And in this video, we're going to break it down step by step. Because the truth is, Singapore didn't just grow fast, it rewrote the rulebook on development. Let's dive into the secrets of this tiny nation's big success. Chapter 1, Survival Mode. When Singapore became independent in 1965, the situation was nothing short of desperate. Malaysia had expelled it, calling it a burden. Indonesia, its neighbor, was openly hostile. And to make matters worse, Britain, the colonial power, was shutting down its military base, which employed tens of thousands of Singaporeans. Overnight, jobs vanished, and the island's tiny economy faced collapse. On paper, Singapore looked doomed. It had no oil like the Middle East, no farmland like Thailand, no vast markets like China. Even drinking water had to be imported from Malaysia through a fragile agreement. Every sign pointed to failure. But instead of surrendering to despair, Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew and his team went into survival mode. They knew the only path forward was to turn people into the nation's resource. That meant rapid industrialization, attracting foreign investors, and creating jobs immediately. Factories were built with astonishing speed, often with foreign partnerships. The government offered political stability, efficient laws, and low taxes to lure companies from the United States, Japan, and Europe. While other young nations pushed foreigners away, Singapore rolled out the red carpet. At the same time, the Housing Development Board, HDB, launched one of the most ambitious public housing programs in history. Slums vanished as modern apartments rose, giving ordinary citizens dignity, stability, and a stake in the country's future. The combination of jobs and homes created a powerful effect. Less unrest, more loyalty, and rising confidence in the government. Singapore had discovered its first survival truth. If you don't have resources, you must create value. Through discipline, hard work, and clever strategy, this was just the beginning of the miracle. Chapter 2, Killing Corruption Before It Killed Them. Corruption is the silent killer of nations. It eats away trust, slows down growth, and drives talent away. Many young countries after independence collapsed under its weight. Singapore knew from day one it could not afford this disease. Lee Kuan Yew and his team took a bold approach. They created one of the strictest anti-corruption systems in the world. First, they attacked the root cause, temptation. Politicians, judges, and civil servants were paid competitive salaries. The logic was simple. If you pay public servants poorly, they will be tempted to steal. If you pay them well, they have more to lose. Second, the laws were unforgiving. If you took bribes, if you abused power, you didn't just lose your job, you went to jail. No one was too powerful to escape punishment. Even senior ministers were investigated if suspicion arose. This sent a clear message. Singapore was serious. Third, the Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau, CPIB, reported directly to the Prime Minister, not to the police or another ministry. This meant no one could block investigations. It was fearless and independent, striking fear into dishonest officials. The results were dramatic. Businesses saw that in Singapore, they could operate without bribes or endless delays. Investors trusted the system, citizens trusted their leaders. And here lies the twist. Instead of being feared, the government became respected. Strict laws did not scare away opportunity, they attracted it. Companies preferred a tough but honest environment over a relaxed but corrupt one. In a region where corruption was common, Singapore stood out as the rare exception. That clean reputation became a hidden engine of its growth. Today, Singapore ranks among the least corrupt countries in the world. And it all started with one belief. Without honesty, survival was impossible. Chapter 3, Education. People as the real resource. Singapore had no oil, no gold, no farmland. The only thing it had was its people. So the government made a bold decision. Education would be the new currency of the nation. Schools were built across the island with speed and purpose. Every child, no matter how poor, would have access to learning. But Singapore didn't just copy foreign systems, it designed one for survival. English was chosen as the working language. This was not just practical, it was strategic. English connected Singaporeans to the global economy, to science, and to trade. At the same time, mother tongues like Chinese, Malay, and Tamil were preserved. So identity and culture were never lost. But here's where Singapore was different. It didn't rely only on theory. The government realized that factories, banks, and new industries needed real skills. So they built polytechnics, technical institutes, and universities that trained engineers, technicians, and managers. Education was matched to the jobs of tomorrow. While many countries produced graduates who couldn't find work, Singapore produced workers who were exactly what the global market needed. That turned its people into the oil and gold the country never had. And education was not just about jobs, it was about mindset. From a young age, students were trained to be disciplined, hardworking, and adaptable. This culture of excellence became the backbone of Singapore's rise. Even today, Singapore's schools rank among the best in the world. Its people, bilingual, skilled, and globally connected, are the true treasure of the nation. Singapore proved a powerful truth. Natural resources can run out, but human talent can grow forever. Chapter 4, Location turned into an advantage. Singapore is small, so small you can drive across it in under an hour. But its position on the map is priceless. The island sits right on the Malacca Strait, the narrow waterway through which almost a quarter of the world's trade passes. For centuries, great empires and traders had used this route. But after independence, Singapore decided to transform geography into its greatest advantage. The government invested heavily in building one of the most advanced ports in the world. Cranes, shipping terminals, and storage facilities were designed with one goal: speed. No delays, no corruption, no chaos. Ships that stopped in Singapore could refuel, unload, reload, and leave faster than anywhere else. This made the port a magnet for global trade. At the same time, Singapore built Changi Airport, which quickly became more than just an airport. It became a global hub connecting Europe, America, and Asia. With its efficiency, comfort, and constant upgrades, Changi was repeatedly ranked the best in the world. And the strategy didn't stop there. Singapore positioned itself as a center of finance and logistics. International banks opened offices, multinational companies set up regional headquarters, and trade deals were signed in Singapore's boardrooms. By the 1990s, Singapore wasn't just a stopover, it was the beating heart of Asian commerce. If you wanted to do business in Asia, you couldn't ignore it. This wasn't luck. It was the result of meticulous planning. While other ports and airports in the region suffered from corruption, inefficiency, or political instability, Singapore built a reputation for discipline and trust. And in doing so, a tiny island turned its geography into gold. Chapter 5, Safety and Law. One of the first things visitors notice about Singapore is how safe it feels. You can walk through the city at midnight without fear. Children travel alone on trains. Even valuables left on a cafe table are often still there when you return. This level of safety did not happen by chance. It was built. From the very beginning, Singapore's leaders knew that without order, no amount of development would last. So they designed a legal system that was firm, fast, and fair. Crime was dealt with immediately and harshly. Drug trafficking carried the death penalty. Vandalism, which other countries might dismiss as minor, could lead to jail time or public caning. Bribery and fraud were treated as serious crimes, not as normal business. The message was clear. Singapore would not tolerate disorder. To outsiders, these laws sometimes seemed too strict. Critics called the city too controlled. But for Singaporeans, the payoff was priceless. Streets free of fear, neighborhoods free of gangs, and businesses free of corruption. This culture of safety didn't just make life better for citizens, It attracted the world. Companies trusted that contracts would be enforced. Investors knew their money would not vanish in shady deals. Tourists felt secure exploring even the darkest alleys. And so, law and order became another secret weapon of Singapore's success. The nation wasn't trying to be scary, it was trying to be secure. That security created a priceless currency, trust. And with trust, Singapore grew at lightning speed. Chapter 6: Innovation Without Resources. Most countries grow rich by digging into the ground. Oil, coal, gold, farmland. But Singapore had none of these. Its only choice was to innovate. Instead of crying about what it didn't have, it turned weakness into strength. Take land, for example. Singapore is tiny with barely enough space to house its people. So it built vertical farms, skyscrapers for vegetables, where crops are grown upward instead of outward. Technology replaced farmland. Water was another problem. With no natural lakes or rivers big enough to supply its people, Singapore relied heavily on imports. But depending on neighbors was risky, so it created desalination plants to turn seawater into drinking water, and new water facilities to recycle every drop of used water into clean, safe drinking supplies. What looked like a disadvantage became an engineering triumph. Singapore also understood that its future lay in knowledge industries. It invested heavily in biotechnology, finance, and digital technology. Global banks set up shop in its financial district. Research hubs attracted top scientists. Tech startups were supported by government grants and incubators. Education and innovation worked hand in hand, producing a workforce ready for the future, and Singapore didn't try to do it all alone. It built global partnerships, working with universities, foreign investors, and multinational companies. This made the island a hub of fresh ideas, from clean energy projects to smart city designs. Today, Singapore is more than just a business hub. It's a living laboratory for the world. Visitors often say the city feels like a glimpse of the future, clean, efficient, and technologically advanced. By necessity, Singapore proved that you don't need natural resources to thrive. You only need imagination, discipline, and the courage to innovate. Chapter 7: Culture of Discipline. Behind Singapore's shining skyscrapers and futuristic airports lies something less visible but more powerful: a culture of discipline. From the beginning, Singapore's leaders made it clear: progress required sacrifice. Citizens were asked to follow rules, pay taxes, keep the city clean, and work hard. And remarkably, the people accepted this as the price of survival. Laws against littering, chewing gum, or jaywalking may seem small to outsiders, even amusing. But for Singapore, these rules created habits. Order on the streets turned into order in business. Clean neighborhoods turned into clean governance. What started as discipline in daily life grew into discipline at a national level. This doesn't mean life is perfect. Singaporeans sometimes complain about the pressure of competition, the high cost of living, or the strict system. Yet deep down, most recognize that these sacrifices created something rare: stability. And stability is the soil where growth takes root. While other nations lost decades to corruption, riots, or political games, Singapore kept its focus. People trusted that if they worked hard, the system would reward them. Businesses trusted that contracts would be honored. Families trusted that their children would have opportunities. This culture of discipline became Singapore's invisible engine. It kept the nation steady through global crises, financial crashes, and regional tensions. In the end, this is the quiet secret of Singapore's rise. Not just smart policies, not just strong leadership, but millions of ordinary people choosing order over chaos, discipline over shortcuts, and the future over comfort. While many nations wasted time fighting over division, Singapore quietly built tomorrow. Conclusion: the miracle that wasn't luck. So how did Singapore rise from swamps and slums to skyscrapers and success in just one generation? It wasn't magic, and it certainly wasn't luck. It was a carefully crafted strategy built on 5 unshakable pillars. First, survival came before pride. Jobs were created, housing was built, and stability was secured. The government focused on the basics first: food, homes, and dignity, because without survival, there could be no progress. Second, corruption was killed before it could kill the nation. While other countries watched leaders enrich themselves, Singapore created one of the cleanest governments in the world. That honesty turned the country into a safe haven for investors and businesses. Third, education transformed people into the nation's real treasure. With no natural resources, Singapore made its citizens the oil and gold of the country. Schools, polytechnics, and universities trained workers who were ready for global industries. Fourth, safety and law built trust. Strict rules may have looked harsh, but they created order. And in that order, both citizens and investors found security, a rare and priceless advantage. Finally, innovation turned weakness into strength. No land, build upward. No water, create new water. No oil, invest in technology, finance, and science. Every disadvantage became a reason to innovate. These 5 pillars carried Singapore from nothing to greatness. And here lies the true lesson. You don't need natural resources to succeed. What you need is vision, discipline, and courage. Today, Singapore shines not because of what it found underground, but because of what it built above ground. Its wealth is man-made, its future is self-made, and its success is people-powered. So the next time you look at a world map and see that tiny red dot called Singapore, remember this. Sometimes the smallest places hold the biggest secrets to success. And Singapore's secret is simple. The miracle was never luck. It was discipline turned into destiny.